Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. It's week 6 here. I'll be going over the waiver wire. I'll go over every single position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defenses, and do what I can to help you guys get your waiver wire claims in ahead of week 6. I'll go over each position to highlight each player that I think is worth at least taking a look at here. Not going to really necessarily touch on Fab too much here because I do think that it's kind of dependent on leagues. So if you do have any specific questions, let me know. I'll be trying to do my best to help you out, help you sort of guide you in terms of what you should spend in Fab, just because it's so league dependent. If you really need a running back, if you're in a 14-team league versus a 10-team league, all that stuff changes so much that I think it's kind of just disingenuous to give you guys general Fab amounts. So obviously. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Again, if you have any specific ad drop questions, let me know as well in the comments. I love helping you guys out there. A lot of teams on bye this week, so we got a lot that we got to work with, and hopefully we can do our best to get you guys set up for a win in week 6. So yeah, with that, let's get started here. I'll start things off with the quarterback position with probably my favorite ad this week. I know it maybe seems a little bit overreactive, but Kirk Cousins, they've got a 70+% pass rate in each of the last 2 weeks, 71% and then 78% in weeks 3 and 4, or weeks 4 and 5, I mean. It kind of just seems more and more like Kirk Cousins is looking more like himself. This is one of the best offenses he's been a part of in terms of total weapons. I'm not going to talk bad at all about what he had in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison last year. But, getting Bijan, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, even Kyle Pitts, who hasn't looked great, but, as a decent fourth option in the offense for sure. There are a lot of really good weapons in this offense, and if they're going to throw the ball that kind of way, there's a lot of upside here. This defense is not fantastic by any means, so they're going to have to win shootouts if they want to be a super competitive team, and they play the Panthers in week 6, so that's a really fantastic matchup. If you're out your quarterback this week for one reason or another, I could certainly see the Panthers really letting Kirk Cousins just absolutely go off on them. So Cousins is a guy, I think he'll be a streaming consideration going forward, sort of like right back to what he has been over the last several years, where he's been like that low-end quarterback one with some weekly upside and good matchups. So he belongs there for sure. Geno Smith just keeps getting it done. He's running the ball more than you might expect as well. The Seahawks offense didn't look great this last week against New York, but he needs to be rostered for sure. He's honestly maybe going to be a low-end quarterback one the rest of the way. I think Caleb Williams potentially just get ahead of the breakout here. He's trending up each and every week. Really took advantage of a good matchup this last week against the Panthers. I think Caleb Williams is starting to figure things out a little bit. His quarterback rating has risen every single week so far this season. He's got good weapons, obviously, and DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet's really solid tight end. DeAndre Swift looks good. Caleb Williams could potentially be this year's CJ Stroud. I'm not going to overreact to obviously what we saw this last week against the Panthers, but Williams is supposed to be good. He's starting to look better and better, and he's mobile enough that you get some production there as well. So if you need to go there, if you want someone for a rest of season ad, Caleb's a guy that at least has a lot of upside. Moving on to the running back position here, this one's going to be headlined by Rico Dowdle, who probably should have been rostered before, but if he's not in your league already, he's clearly the priority ad for me at the running back room. He's just the clear lead back in Dallas at this point. Really broke out this last week, made a really great catch on a touchdown that they really badly needed. Really stabilized the offense for them this week. It just looks the part as the clear lead back in this offense. I think Rico Dowdle's a guy that's going to be like a low-end running back 2 for us the rest of the way. We knew there was going to be some value in this offense for the Cowboys, especially if someone really just got a hold of this backfield, and it looks like Rico Dowdle did this week. So Dowdle needs to be rostered for sure. And Dallas's offense hasn't even really put up its ceiling game yet. There's going to be some big games for Rico Dowdle going forward. Chase Brown would be my next favorite ad. He looks to be taking over anyway. I always thought, at least so far, that he looked better than Zach Moss so far this season. Now Zach Moss left this game last week with an injury. No word just yet in terms of how serious that's going to be, but if he misses any time, Chase Brown's going to be probably a must-start play running back for us going forward. Tank Bigsby, have to mention him. Just looks so good out there on the field. Had 2 touchdowns this week. I think he's outplaying Travis Etienne on every level right now. I don't think there's ever going to be a world where he just takes the job from Travis Etienne. Etienne, they're too invested in. He's a first-round pick. Has looked good for the Jaguars too. So I don't want to say Bigsby's going to win that job, but he looks better, and I do think there's at least an outside chance that Travis Etienne gets moved at the trade deadline here. So just keep an eye on that. Bigsby needs to be rostered. He's a high-end handcuff, and if Etienne got traded or hurt, Bigsby could be an RB1 the rest of the season. Tyrone Tracy might have stolen the running back 1 job in New York this week, had 15 carries for 129 yards, caught a pass, just looked really good out there, looked way better than Devin Singletary has to this point. And we know, even though he only caught 1 pass, he's got a great pass-catching background. He was a receiver in college. This is a team that actually won this last week, so they didn't have to throw the ball as much, but if they had to, Tyrone Tracy could have caught a ton of passes. I think he's going to have some high-end receiving games going forward as well, and he's a guy that definitely needs to be on rosters. Ty Chandler. I still need to see how banged up Aaron Jones is going to be, but he's got a shot at a significant role here. He's flashed before as a talented player. I know he had the fumbles last week, but Chandler's a good player. He's a lower-end ad, but he's a handcuff slash timeshare running back in an offense that maybe just lost their starter, so he needs to be rostered for sure. Raheem Mostert, he was probably dropped in a lot of leagues, especially those that don't have IR spots. And I know the Dolphins are on bye here in week 6, but he looked good this last week. And Devon Achane is hurt. There's always the chance Achane misses the game in week 7. Even if he doesn't, Raheem Mostert's a guy that's going to have a role. He's someone that we expected to have a role in this offense early on in the season. It's just, it's easy to forget about these guys when they get hurt in week 1, but he looked good. He's important to this Dolphins offense. And even after week 7, let's assume Achane's back week 7. Probably not a guy you want to start in week 7, but Tua could be back as early as week 8, I believe. This offense looks completely different if Tua comes back, and we saw what Mostert did in this offense with Tua. So Mostert needs to be on rosters for sure. And then Trey Sermon, you could get one more good week out of him. The Colts obviously put up a lot of points this last week. We'll see what happens with Jonathan Taylor this next week, but those ankle sprains are tricky. If Sermon gets another week, he's a guy that you could start if you needed to. Next up, we've got the wide receiver position. I'll start things off with Darnell Mooney. I've talked about him a couple times on this segment here, but he honestly might be the wide receiver 1 in Atlanta. He's been the leading receiver in terms of yardage so far in the season, led the team in targets again in week 5, looked really, really good, scored twice, I believe. He's just a really good player, honestly, and he looks to have a really locked-in role in this Atlanta offense. I think he definitely needs to be rostered as a guy that you could probably start every single week right now. Josh Downs, I honestly do view him as the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis. Needs to be rostered for sure. Obviously, there's a huge drop-off in expected production if we see Anthony Richardson take over, just because you'll see passing volume go down, passing accuracy go down. So that's a huge hit to him, but he's a really talented player, a guy you can play, especially in full PPR. Operates really close to the line of scrimmage, which isn't really what you'd expect Anthony Richardson to do. So again, you want to see more Joe Flacco there. It's going to be Richardson when he's back, but Downs is too talented and too good to leave off this list. Jalen Tolbert really excelled in the Brandon Cooks role this last week. Came back out there and caught the game-winning touchdown in this game. He's a guy that Dak really seems to trust right now. He's the clear wide receiver 2, probably the 3rd target here. He needs to be rostered as a guy that in plus matchups could certainly put up some big games. Michael Wilson, he's the clear 3rd target right now in Arizona. Arizona's offense seems to be clicking, and they have a really fun matchup this week against Green Bay. I think you can play Michael Wilson as a low-end flex play if you need to. Trey Tucker, potentially the wide receiver 1 in Vegas. I know it was just awful in general this last week. You saw Jacoby Myers kind of get it done and not Trey Tucker, but they need playmakers. They're obviously going to lose Devontae Adams here at some point. I don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback position in Vegas, but Tucker's a talented enough player. He's a deep threat. He's a guy that'll design touches for us, so he's got upside. Low-end guy that's worth rostering for sure. Jerry Jeudy. The Browns suck, but Amari Cooper is likely to be traded at some point here, and it's going to make Jerry Jeudy the wide receiver 1 in this offense. It'll make him a guy that we can play as a flex. And honestly, if Cooper got traded and then Jameis Winston came in, Jerry Jeudy could be a top 15 wide receiver in that case. I know that seems kind of out there, but both those things are possible. He needs to be rostered just in case those things happen, especially in deeper leagues. Juju Smith-Schuster seems to be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. I don't want to overreact because it is Juju, but he looked really great this last week. He's, the Chiefs need weapons, and if Juju can play like that, he could be a steal. It's kind of crazy saying that Juju Smith-Schuster and Kareem Hunt are really high-end options in fantasy in 2024 right now, but that might be the case, so I just don't want to disregard that. Juju's a guy that needs to be at least looked at seriously. Jordan Whittington seems to be the wide receiver 1 in LA, at least until the injuries heal up for Puka and Kupp. We'll see what happens there, but I think Whittington's a guy that in week 7 you could potentially flex if you needed to. Sounds like Kupp's got a chance to come back after the bye in week 6, so Whittington's not a high priority ad, but he's just a nice $0 ad. He's not going to show up on your waiver wire because he'll be projected for 0 points on bye this week, but is a guy that I think's got a shot to be useful if you need him. Then Allen Lazard seems like the clear wide receiver 2 in New York, so deep league, low-end flex option if you need him. He's obviously got chemistry with Rodgers, someone you could play if you needed to. Moving on to the tight end position here, I'll start things off for the second week in a row with Tucker Kraft. Probably got added, but if he didn't, he absolutely is a priority here. He looks great. He had a just really fantastic long touchdown, broke a couple tackles, looked fast. He looks really good in a really good offense, and he's the clear tight end 1 there, so he's a guy that needs to be added for sure. Behind him, we got Cade Otton. He's seen significant volume here. He's got 21 targets over the last 3 weeks. That can't go unnoticed. And then he plays the Saints next week, who have given up a lot of points to opposing tight ends. We saw Travis Kelce catch 9 passes this last week. I think Cade Otton could be a decent streaming option for us in week 7 or week 6. And then Zach Ertz. He's been involved enough. Obviously not a great game this last week. Only 2 catches for 10 yards, I believe. But he plays Baltimore in week 6. One of the best matchups for opposing tight ends so far. So he's a guy you could stream if you needed to. I know it sucks, but he's an option if you need to. And finally, not last but certainly not least here, we've got the defensive options here. I will start things off with Pittsburgh. They get a matchup against the Raiders in week 6, and somehow they could be dropped because a lot of teams had to drop them because they played Dallas this last week, kind of scared people a little bit. So if they're out there, they're going to be a monster option. They get the Raiders this next week, and then they get the Jets and the Giants the 2 weeks after that. So Pittsburgh's going to put you up great on defense for the next 3 weeks. Really solid options, not guys that definitely a team that I want to get. I would be willing to even spend like 5 fab on them, which is a lot for a defense. Houston, they get New England in week 6. It's going to be a great matchup there. You can absolutely play them. And then Philadelphia, they get to play Cleveland in week 6. We can just target Cleveland every single week. Deshaun Watson's going to keep taking sacks and throwing picks. Philly's had a whole 2 weeks to prepare for this game. I think Philadelphia is in line for a pretty easy win against Cleveland, and I bet Cleveland struggles on offense again, so they'd be a really solid option again. So that'll do it for the waiver wire targets for week 6. Up next, I'll be going over some trade targets. So I will go over buy low candidates, sell high candidates. We're through 5 weeks here, so we've got a lot of information in terms of how teams are going to operate. We can start looking a little bit more seriously at schedules just going forward, because we have more information in terms of what teams are good and bad matchups for each position. We could do a lot. We can even start looking ahead towards those playoffs if we're in a good spot to make sure that we make those. So lots of options here, a lot of things we can do trading going forward, and lots of ways to make our team better. Waivers is part of it. Trading is another part of it. We just want to make sure we keep getting better every single week, and we peak in those playoffs and we come home with some trophies. So if you guys want to make sure you don't miss any of that future content, there will be trade targets, start sits, and a live stream the rest of the week. Then you'll obviously get the weekly recap and the waiver wire next week, just every single week. Those will be the videos that come out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel that we don't miss any of that. It's all free. I'll just be here all year long to help you guys win some championships. And then if you made it this far in the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It just helps me out quite a bit. So yeah, really appreciate you guys. It was a fun week 5. Heading into week 6, let's get some good waiver wire ads, make some good trades, and get ready to roll and win in week 6. Appreciate you guys. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.